Fellow wrestling fans, and Happy New Year from the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Nate Maxon here with you, along with my brother Aaron.
Hello, everybody.
And we are in We Can't Wrestle podcast Hall of Fame season, but we'll start working on those shows next week. You can check out the WNR Facebook page to find out who is inducted this year, because it is up there. It's public knowledge now in the We Can't Wrestle podcast Hall of Fame. But stay tuned. Like I said, starting next week, I think we're going to start doing our Hall of Fame discussion episodes with folks from the voting panel. And that's always, again, my favorite thing of the year to do on this particular podcast. And also, when we're done with that, I think we should do another series on a 500 because I really enjoy that too.
Oh, it's my second favorite idea we ever had. I love those 500s.
So yeah, I'll let me see.
The highlight of the 500s is Billy Gunn ate a meatball sub at WWF New York. It's a fucking highlight.
But no, then that's one of the ones where we just picked a random number. What I'm saying is I want to do another one where we go through the whole 500 like we did with the first one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
that's fun too.
Because I have every PWI 500, and I'll let you pick whether you want to do 92, 93, or 94. Because the first one I believe was 91.
You said 91, 92, or 94?
92, 93, or 94.
94.
All right. 1994 PWI 500. We'll be doing that coming up in the new year. It took us, 9 episodes, I think, to get to the last one. So we'll see how that goes. But we also had like 19 hosts for every episode. So it took forever to do just 50 stars. But anyway, this week, what we're going to do on the show for the New Year's Eve weekend edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast is talk about, and we talked about a Hall of Fame just then. We talked about a top 500 just then. We're going to talk about something that's not necessarily, you're not saying that, if I were someone to say, who's your favorite wrestler of all time? Boom, Randy Savage. But Randy Savage isn't on this list that I made, because the list that we've made here are,
he's not on mine either.
Bell to bell. Who do we think personally are the best in-ring bell-to-bell workers? And, obviously, since I never watched Earl Caddock wrestle, Earl Caddock's not going to be on my list. That's why it's funny. Wrestling is so funny because it's all so subjective. Like, you know what I mean?
Like I've seen a few Lou Thez matches. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna have Lou Thez on my list.
Yeah, you haven't seen enough of his work to
yeah.
He hasn't. I haven't. I'm sure he was impressive, but I haven't seen enough where he resonates as impressive to me as people that are on my list. Because you're always going to go with people that you watch a lot, people from your era, people from your time. That's just the way it's going to be.
I'm sure Abe Lincoln was fantastic.
And I will say this. I will say this really quick. Continuing his body of work in 5 years, I am positive that if we revisited this list, I'm almost positive that Gunter would be on this list for me. Because to me, because I don't watch Japanese wrestling. I always say that, full disclosure, I don't watch it. I don't have time in my life to watch it. But in North America, for the promotions that I watch right now, he's bell to bell the best wrestler in the world at the moment. My opinion. Bell to bell.
Yeah.
Again, not my favorite, but overall not my favorite, but definitely bell to bell.
I'd slightly agree with you. The only other reason I'd say slightly is because Randy's back.
Yeah. I mean, and AJ
and totally honest, Randy was an honorable mention on my list in case we had some crossovers. I'm sure we will, but
well, we'll just start with that then. He's on my list,
and he should be.
And Well, I was just going to say also, just as a side note, I would say yes, Randy Orton is back, and so is AJ Styles, who's not on my list, but would also be high up there. But yeah, well, we'll just start with my first pick, Randy Orton. And I was actually talking to Mark Brew earlier today because he was going to join us. I don't know if he had
He messaged and said he dozed off and he'd be on in a minute.
Okay. Well, but he and I were talking earlier, and I said that he said he had a couple of modern guys on his list, and I said I have a modern guy on my list, but I also told him, I said, your definition of modern and my definition of modern are probably different because Mark is younger than us.
Yeah.
Like, I think of shit from 2002 as modern product to me. Like, it's anything past like the death of WCW to me is all that whole 20 years is just this one big block of time that I call, I guess, the modern era of wrestling.
Yeah. And
it's the time where I became over the past 20 years, although I still watch wrestling, I still love wrestling, I became less hardcore of a fan of the modern product over that period of time.
I'm the same, and Randy is how do I say it? Like, he's kind of the conduit or whatever of those eras, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's if somebody was going to look at a wrestling show and be like, "Oh, that's the old school guy," that would be Randy, and he's not even old. You know what I mean? But he's still the guy that learned from his dad and his grandpa, but also learned from Hunter, Flair, Foley,
and
and carried it over into that next generation. You know what I mean?
And in between that, also, he in between being brought up by his dad and his grandpa and coming to the main roster of the WWE, he also got to be under the learning tree of Danny Davis and Jim Cornette. So there's a lot of great fucking wrestling minds planted in Randy Orton.
And all you got to do is look at the guy and be like, this is the fucking guy. You know? But he's the last true pro wrestler, in my opinion.
Him and Cena.
Yeah, and yeah. And you could put Brock in there too, but
yeah.
I just think he's just the
pretty much that whole class from OVW.
Yeah, but Randy's the one that took it and got it.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Since we're talking about,
like, I'd put him above John, and I'd put him above Dave, and I'd put him above Brock. He's just the guy that fucking got it.
I would put him above John bell to bell, which is what we're talking about. I would say he is the worker, and I'm not discounting the whole package either. I am a huge Randy Orton fan. As a matter of fact, in the modern era of wrestling, and when I say modern era, I mean Aaron and I were talking before we started, or maybe it was while we were talking here, but the modern era of wrestling to me, because everything from the death of WCW till today is all this big block, and that's what I call modern wrestling. I would say in the modern wrestling era, he's the wrestler. He's the best wrestler. And that's not discounting Daniel Bryan or anybody else, but he's so smooth. His psychology is amazing. And I would say Cena in the modern era is the best of what you would say is the total package. You know what I mean? Like as far as yeah. But anyway, we're not talking about Cena. We're talking about Orton.
it's gonna sound funny, but Randy, like if you look at like the '80s, Randy is Randy, and Cena is Hogan.
I would
You know
say,
what I mean? Like,
I would say Orton is Flair and Cena is Hogan.
yeah, Flair and Savage are kind of same. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's why when they fucking worked, it was fucking fantastic because you're like, Jesus Christ, this is the best of the best. But yeah, it's like that. That's how I look at it. It's like if you would take the '80s and be like, tell me who you would like attribute these people to. It's like I'd say John Cena's Hulk Hogan, where it's still fucking great and entertaining no matter who he's with. But when you put him with somebody that's really good, it's great. But it's about the story, and then Randy could just go in there with anybody and just give you the best fucking match on the card.
Yeah, and like I said, since we're talking about bell to bell, I'll mention my attributes. I kind of alluded to it there, but Randy Orton has everything he does is smooth. It looks natural. His psychology is insane. Like just just watch some of his matches again. Watch you want to see some amazing psychology by a dude that was only in his early 20s. Go watch that hardcore match with him and Foley, or watch his matches with the Undertaker and the way he reacts to the Undertaker when they had that feud, and just his psychology is off the fucking chain. Good.
Yeah.
Like when he hits those thumbtacks, the look on his face is the face of a little prima donna that had no idea what he was getting into. It's so good. It's so fucking good. When he hits those thumbtacks, that's one of my best reaction, like one of my best like facial cell reactions in the history of pro wrestling.
Oh, the dude's a fucking master. And I don't watch a lot of modern shit, but when they said Randy came back at that Survivor series or whatever it was, the War Games deal or whatever, when he came back, it was like mass. Like I got more pumped for Randy coming back and got more into it than when Punk came back, and they came back at the same time. You know what I mean? But there's not a better. And I know you said Gunther or whatever, but and Gunther's great, but I don't think there's a better guy in the business right now than Randy.
Well, Mark Brew has joined us, and
Nah.
Mark, when you and I were talking earlier, and we said modern, we were discussing the word modern. The modern guy, and that's why I said for me, modern is like since the death of WCW. The modern guy for me that was on this list of best bell to bell in ring workers was Randy Orton, and that's who Aaron and I have been talking about. So,
well, it's funny because he's on my list too.
all right, well, we can knock him off your list then. But yeah, I mean, anything you want to say about Randy before we go to Aaron's first pick?
It's just he really understands the psychology of wrestling, like when to, when he does the little boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
getting ready
well,
for the RKO and stuff, and just like bell to bell when he does that. My favorite thing that he does is when he whips him into the ropes and then he does that power slam.
mm-hmm.
He does that to perfection in his DDT from the second rope.
Well, and I was just telling the listeners, and I'm sure anybody that listens to this show has seen them, but if they hadn't, you want to see a prodigy who already knew psychology in his early 20s, you go watch Randy Orton versus Mick Foley in their hardcore match.
Oh
Or
yeah.
you watch any of the stuff Orton did with Undertaker and the way that he visually and physically sold for the Undertaker.
Yeah, his
Insane.
facial expressions like really nailed a lot of those moments with Taker.
And it has nothing to do with his work, but I love the fact that when like he goes to do, like Mark was saying, where he goes to do that DDT or whatever off the middle rope. I love when he slips like shit you're not supposed to say on TV into it.
He pops
Like
you
that's
in
it.
with that
That's
with
just
the
him being a
meatball.
dick. Like
Right.
when he goes to like pull somebody in, he shakes his head and does all that shit. But he's like on TV, he's just like shit, fuck, cunt, bitch, ass, dick, and then just drops somebody. It's great.
Yeah. He's definitely leaps and bounds better than his father.
Oh, his dad was a great worker.
Yeah, I mean his dad was solid in the ring, but he wasn't
His dad
over as
has
much as Randy.
his dad. Oh, no, he wasn't, and Bob would tell you that. But his dad has one of my favorite spots ever. Is when Hogan hit him and Bob somersaulted back and went, nope, and got away. Fucking Bob was a great worker. Bob was a great chicken shit heel.
All right, Aaron, who's the first person you want to bring up off of your list?
Well, I'm going to bring this guy up just to get him off the list quick. And it's not going to be like, I don't want to talk too much about him, but he is on my list. And it's not a indictment or an endorsement or anything about him. It just, he's a controversial person, but he needs to be mentioned, and it's Chris Benoit.
Oh, he's on my list too. I I have long since decided that it is okay. I don't know why people are still like, you can't talk about his in-ring work, because there are lots of musicians whose music I enjoy that are fucking bastards in real life. There are lots of actors whose acting I enjoy that are real motherfuckers in real life. So I can watch Chris Benoit. I can appreciate how talented he was in the ring. I can appreciate
Yeah.
that everything he did looked realistic. Like when Chris Benoit headbutted somebody, Chris Benoit sold his own headbutt because it would hurt you too. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, I mean, just little things he would do, or like the way that I'll just use a little moment, like when he gets knocked off that ladder in the first Money in the Bank match. The way he sold that when he hit the ground, like he was like a fish out of water like that, but you feel the pain, you know, and that's what we're talking about here is the guys that can suck you in, and for 15 to 20 minutes, it's fucking real to me, damn it. So
Right.
he, again, like I know you said he's it's time to stop.
Separate the art from the artist.
Yes, and I do agree with never putting him in the Hall of Fame. I agree with that because
I agree with that too.
But if you're going to talk about great in-ring workers of all time, you can't not talk about Chris Benoit.
I mean, hell, to me, he was one of the great things about WCW as far as their mid card was. Like
I told Nate the
with
other day.
Benoit and the Horsemen and stuff, like he had that like almost death cold stare, and you know what I'm saying, like that expressionless entrance,
Mm-hmm.
and you was like, this is a bad motherfucker, and he's coming to do bad motherfucker shit.
And like I messaged Nate the other day about and Book isn't on my list, but in '97, Chris Benoit and Booker T, they had the best matches of the fucking year. They had the best
Yep.
matches and the most realistic fucking wrestling matches of anybody. It was that Booker T, Chris Benoit fucking series, and even beyond that, it's like that dude, he fucking sold his ass off, and I have. There's not a lot of guys that you can say I've never seen him have a bad match, but I've never seen a Chris Benoit match where I was like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Like I said, his entire psychology inside the ring, like you said, Mark, the badass thing. He carried the persona from bell to bell. The style and the aggression was so convincing.
Yep.
And there's no doubt about it that he deserves to be on a list of the great in-ring workers of all time, no matter what his transgressions. So,
and if you listen to the guys that want to honestly talk about him, they tell you that it wasn't fake. You know what I mean? Like when he hit you. When he threw that headbutt, he threw that headbutt. When he did this, he just went.
He laid his shit in.
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
That's why I kind of that's why I respect Kurt a lot, because Kurt wasn't a guy that was. Angle wasn't afraid, he was the first guy that wasn't afraid to say, "I know what that guy did, but he's the best guy I ever worked with." You know what I mean? Like everybody else tiptoed around it, but Kurt was the first guy to be like, "Yeah, the best guy I was ever in the ring with was Chris."
Well, Mark, who's the first one you want to knock off your list here?
We'll go a little old school. Can't talk about great in-ring performers without talking about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
I gotta scratch him off my list.
I do not have to scratch him off my list because he's not on my list.
Just bell to bell, Ricky was solid.
And I'm not negating that because this is personal favorites. So right. I'll let you elaborate first on why you put him on your list.
Watch any of his work with Macho. That's enough said. Him and Macho, gold. But I mean, it might have been Randy somewhat, just because he was in there with somebody else great. But to me, bell to bell, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was a solid performer.
Smooth, great babyface wrestler. Great babyface wrestler.
And the entrance, I love the entrance. Like that has nothing to do with this in-ring stuff, but when he come out and blew that fire, like as a kid, that was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and as Steamboat got older, I guess older by wrestling standards. It's funny because any other profession, you're old when you're 65. When you're a wrestler, you're old when you're 45. But as he got older, the other way that you could tell that he was a great worker is he would zero in. He could zero in on somebody that he knew was a star. Steve Austin. He worked fucking great with Steve Austin, Brian Pillman. They didn't work against each other, but it's still working together. He worked really well as a tag team with Shane Douglas. You know, like he epitomized that. Being able to identify talent that he knew was good and go in and give them make them look like $1 million more bucks than they were already worth.
And that goes to say
he was a great tech. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead, because when you finish, I can say this. It's not that has to be said right a second.
I've read stories of people saying this and heard him say it. He would watch boxing fights and see how somebody looked when, like, George Foreman would hit somebody. He'd watch the guy that Foreman hit and see how they staggered off of an actual hit and be like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to sell that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just, I'm going to stagger like a professional wrestler and feign it or whatever. How does somebody look when they actually get hit? I'm going to sell it that way. Like Ricky Steamboat is one of the best sellers in the history of professional wrestling, in my opinion. And that's what matters, is how do you project the peril that you're in. And there's not a lot of guys that did it better than him.
Right. And it's like that saying.
That's why you should be on Mark's list. That's why you should be on Mark's list.
And it's like that saying goes, some winner isn't the winner. It's the guy that goes in there and puts over the other guy and can do it successfully and make it look good. And Steamboat could definitely do that.
Well, we just mentioned the art of selling. And the next guy that's on my list is on my list because of the art of selling. He's, to me, the best babyface salesman in the history of the business. Nobody could take a beating and soak up that sympathy from the crowd like Ricky Morton. Ricky Morton is the best babyface salesman in wrestling history.
Yeah. The guy that got me into the business that passed away a few years ago, he told me when he was teaching me stuff, he was like, some people got to learn how to do the Ricky Morton. Then I said, well, what do you mean by that? He's like, Ricky, he'll get hit, he'll fly out the ring, he'll go and he'll crawl across the front row, crawl across half their laps, but help me. And he's like, but Ricky got the people into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really wanted to help that man.
It's like Cornette always says about him. He always kind of says the same thing. Ricky was the best seller, and he's like, and he in our promotion he was our pussy magnet too, like that was his job. His job was to be sympathetic and be the pussy magnet. That was his job. And
yeah, like he shouldn't be either one of those things.
Some chicks dig the mullet.
You know what I mean? It's like he looks like the guy's like, how are you pulling that down tonight? But
he said, right, and then that Bruno Mars song comes on. Don't believe it, just watch.
Yeah, it's like this little guy's gonna make it happen, and he was fantastic. And you watch him, and nobody sells an ass kicking like that fucking guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that and here's the other thing. Here's the difference, and I'll say this: Shawn Michaels was a great salesman. To his credit, one of the best things in Lex Luger's arsenal was that he was a great salesman. But the other thing about Ricky is, excuse me, this doesn't necessarily, and I guess it does have to do with his work. Like a guy like Shawn Michaels would sell his ass off and everything. But generally, most of the people out there going, come on, Shawn, were the girls. And that's fine. But Ricky is also an anomaly because even the dudes are like, come on, Ricky. Like he has everybody on his side. It's not,
Ricky Morton looked like the guy that's going to roll up, pop a quarter in the jukebox, and you're going to hear Lay Down Sally come on.
Yeah, or the gambler, or like a Midnight Rider. Like when he gets beat up, at the end of the night, he puts a fucking wooden nickel in it, and it's just like, yeah, buddy. I'll smoke a cigarette with that guy in the fucking alley. I'm not smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer with Shawn Michaels, but I'll smoke a cigarette and drink a beer with Ricky Morton.
Oh yeah, he definitely. Them boys is country as cornbread.
Yeah, the Rock and Roll Express are two of the coolest wrestlers I've ever got to meet in person. Those guys, for all the success they had and everything, they're still just good old boys, man. They're
They're the only people that I've ever taken a picture. They're the only wrestlers that I've ever taken a picture with that made me actually fucking smile in the picture. After I took it, like Nate took the picture, I was like, did I look like an asshole in that? And he's like, you were having fun, man. Don't worry about it. It's like, well, I
Don't
look like an
matter if you're
asshole.
teasing like a jackass eating wires, as long as you were having fun.
Aaron, do you want to knock off your list next?
I will knock off. Sounds funny. Like, hopefully this guy doesn't die next week. So, knock off.
The curse of the Maxim brothers.
He croaks before I get the show up. Yeah.
Yeah, I will knock off Fit Finley.
Got to knock him off my list too.
Very solid.
Fit Finley. Oh, go ahead. You brought him up, so you start.
I think it's almost kind of like a Chris Benoit, where what you see him doing is probably somewhat legit. Like, he's snug as fuck, and he's doing his job in there. And if you don't want to, like, get your ass kicked, don't work with him. But he's not gonna. I don't want to say it like. If you don't want to get beat up a little bit, don't work with that guy. Because he's not holding back, and everything.
But he's also not going to injure you.
Yeah, but what he's going to do is he's not going to go out there and look stupid. You know what I mean? Or look fake. And he was just a guy that was like, everything I'm going to do out there is going to look great. And it's kind of like what I said about Chris. Like, I've never seen a bad, serious Fit Finley match. Like, I know he did silly shit with like Hornswoggle and stuff, but like watching his serious stuff, that dude never did anything that I ever saw that I was just like, that's a joke. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he took his profession serious, and
this is he's another guy. You talk about the word psychology.
Yeah.
I mean, especially during his WCW days. Like WCW, that was really serious, down to work Finley for me.
And when you think about the sometimes ridiculousness of what was WWECW, if there was one guy that if you were going to take a guy, pluck a guy out of the WWE roster and put him into ECW, it was smart to put Finley into ECW. He fit. By the time he was there, it wasn't like they had marginalized it into like just another brand. But to wrestle ECW guys and that style, he was perfect for that too. So even later in his career, but yeah.
But I'm not gonna try to sound like a nerd or whatever, but like, I like sitting back and drinking beers and watching like World of Sport and European wrestling. And Finley, even then, like, he had like a ridiculous outfit and all that shit, and he went out there with his like Indian bride and all that shit. But once it was like bell to bell, and they were like going round to round, Finley did fucking great. I watched a match, no lie, I watched a match where it was Dave Finley versus Doink in Germany. And Finley had a great match with the clown. I'm like, this is fucking great. Like, that dude. I can't use enough words to express how fucking great he is. And there's a reason that he was the guy that took how do I say this? He should be given credit for now having Rhea Ripley and who are some of the other women wrestlers now? Rhea Ripley,
Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch.
Yeah. He took women's wrestling from Terry Runnels and all the divas and all that shit and took it to what you see now. And I'm not knocking Terry Runnels or any of those ladies, but he's the guy that took women's wrestling to what it is now.
Yeah, he made them into he trained them to be legit competitors instead of just eye candy.
Yeah, like he should be the guy. He should be put just into the Hall of Fame just for being the guy that taught these ladies how to wrestle and brought it to the new ladies generation now because that's what he did. Like I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying that's the only thing that he did, but there's a reason that like Hunter and Vince were like, "Oh, let's put these chicks with Fit." He's I'm lost in a second here. But do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but like he's the guy that he wouldn't be, a hard ass on him, but he'd be like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what I expect out of you. Let's get it done.
Like he taught them chicks how to work, and he should be recognized for revolutionizing the women's wrestling aspect now, and he should also be recognized for his in-ring work. And in like 95 when he showed up, like that shit he did with Steve Regal, who's also on my list, which I can scratch him off if you guys bring him up. But I don't think Finley gets enough credit for the amount of in-ring work and like teaching that he's brought into the business.
Yeah, he gets credit from the workers, but not enough credit from the general media and stuff.
Right, like
The workers always give him credit. Like Natalia always brings him up, and they definitely give him his flowers, but he doesn't get it enough from everybody else. Mark, who's next on your list?
Next on my list, let's decide which one of these guys I want to talk about. Well, I know that he's probably on Nate's list also, and they called him the excellence of execution for a reason. But Bret Hart.
Yes, he's definitely on my list.
I gotta scratch him off. God damn it.
He made all three.
Okay.
But like, and Bret just fucking got it. Like he trained hard. He to understand it, and he executed it well. Um, he could be the guy that you love, or he could be the guy that you fucking want to punch in the mouth. like when we were talking about '97 and stuff, like back then when he was doing that, Canadian Patriot thing, you know what I'm saying? Like he really can piss off those American crowds and make them want to hit him right dead square in the jaw. But bell to bell in the ring, he was flawless. He
Another
knew
another
his
guy you can
lane.
say never had a bad match. I never saw a bad Bret Hart match.
I mean, except for with Goldberg, but that's beside the point.
This might sound stupid, but I've never seen a guy be able to take a chest first turnbuckle bump like Bret Hart.
Right.
Like, just to fucking take it and sell it, it's like when Bret hit other guys would hit a turnbuckle, I'd be like, oh, I think that's like a cushion or whatever, you know? But like when Bret fucking took it, it looked like it was like a fucking shotgun hitting him.
Yeah, his face was, he'd be like,
Yeah, and he fucking full bore just fucking took it.
right.
And Bret could, and it was kind of like what we were talking about Ricky. He could sell an ass kicking like nobody's business, and Bret was fucking great.
He took some of the simple things that you know you don't a lot of people don't really appreciate, and he made them great. Like that middle rope elbow, like front of the arm drop.
And he had
I always enjoyed watching him hit that.
I don't know if this makes sense. It should make sense, but he also has like the best exasperated face, like looking exhausted and overwhelmed with like a great match. Like the way that he would breathe and the way that he'd move his mouth and the way that he'd move his hair, and he just got it. He just fucking got it. And also, you mentioned, Mark, about the heel thing, like flip from the baby face and the selling and all that. The best thing about his psychology in the ring as a heel, I always say it, but he was so good when he turned heel at giving the crowd just that shit eating, like when he do something dastardly to somebody in the ring, the smirk, or even not even just the smirk, but even just a look out to the crowd. You know, the only person that was probably better than him at that was Bobby Heenan, with just like but Bret would do, like, he'd do some shitty
He'd
move
wink.
and then
Bret would wink. Like literally, he would wink at people. He just
I just kicked that guy in the nuts. You see that?
Wink. It's good shit, pal.
Yeah, we couldn't talk about greatest in ring performers, in my opinion, without having Bret Hart on that list.
I wholeheartedly agree. One of the best to ever do it, and he's one of those guys that, yeah, does he come off sometimes like he's a little full of himself? Yeah, but he kind of has the right to be, because he really was as good. He really was as good as he says he was.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Because there's some guys that that I will say are great wrestlers and are recognized as great wrestlers, but I can find holes in their game. Yeah,
right.
With Bret, that's a tough task to find a hole in his game. Seriously.
I mean, fuck, he was great tag teaming with Davey Boy or Jim. You know what I'm saying? Like anytime you've seen him in the ring, even as a cohesive unit with one of them guys, there was nothing. You know, he even understood the psychology of tag team wrestling down to a T.
Yeah. Anything else on Bret before I move on to my next one?
Excellence of execution. That's what we're talking about. Excellent executors.
The next guy
Did
on
I
my
mention-
list.
Oh,
Go ahead, Aaron.
no, go with your guy. Sorry.
I was just gonna say. Actually, I guess we'll knock him off here because you mentioned him a minute ago, and yes, he is on my list, and it's William Regal.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Is if I mentioned Steve Regal, that fucking dude. God damn.
He is a pro wrestling multi-tool.
He might be.
I don't mean tool in the bad respect. I don't mean tool in the bad respect either. I mean you need him to be a heel. He's a heel. You need him to be a face. He's a face. You need him to have a great, amazing technical match. He can have a great, amazing technical match. You need him to fucking be the guy that's goofed on by the baby face. He'll be the square. He'll get goofed on by the baby face. Regal is just the perfect pro wrestler.
I was gonna say he might be the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Like he literally might be the best ever.
I mean, even when he was doing that blue blood gimmick, I still, could appreciate the technicality of which he done the in ring work.
Like the reason I could say this guy might be the greatest in ring professional wrestler of all time is when they made him dress up like a Vegas showgirl. And he still worked. Do you know what I'm talking about, Nate?
Yeah.
Yeah, when
he was still a badass, but like
everything.
the feathers were flying off of him and shit, but he was still hitting the move. Like he might be the greatest fucking wrestler that's ever lived.
And he definitely was one of the proverbial. He was much more than Flair, the proverbial guy that could have a good match with a broomstick. I mean, they put him through the ringer with some stinkers in both WCW and WWE, and he could make the worst wrestler look like the best wrestler of the night. And I don't know, just a perfect professional wrestler. End of story.
And like I said, that's why he's on my list. I think Steve Regal is I'm gonna get lost for words because like whatever, but like the guy he's never been bad. Like even his worst personally in his life, there wasn't anybody better than him.
He hopefully he goes in the Hall of Fame this year, by the way. But
oh, he probably will now.
But yeah,
Vince is dead, right? Didn't you say Vince died?
No, but Vince has pretty much been marginalized at this point because, like I said to Aaron before we went on the air, at this point, Hunter is in full control of creative, which also means he is in full control of the Hall of Fame. So Endeavor pretty much put Vince out to pasture. Vince is just the old guy milling around the office now. So, but yeah, Regal definitely deserves to be acknowledged as one of the best in-ring bell-to-bell workers of all time.
Well, that's why I'm looking forward going to the Rumble this year with Triple H and full creative control on that. He's going to pull one out the hat.
It's going to be, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds on it, but this is going to be like one of the more interesting years of my life as a wrestling fan, because this is going to be the first full like starting with, and they're already talking big about that day one edition of Raw. It's fine. You're finally going to have we've never really seen, well, any of us in our lifetime, we've never really seen the WWF without Vince in charge. You know, even though you had different writers and different people, like your creative director or whatever, at the end of the day, it's always been the buck stops with him, and it's going to be really cool to see the company with someone else's vision leading the company. It's very interesting. It's very intriguing to me.
I also liked when Regal left. He went to AEW, and then Vince died, and he was like, "I'm gonna go back." I know Vince didn't die, but you know what I'm saying. Like Vince got put on life support, and then Regal was like, "I'm gonna go back," and they were like, "You can't be on TV if you go back," and he's like, "Okay,
That's fine."
I didn't want to be on TV anyway.
Well,
and
Aaron,
I don't want to
who's
work for this fucking cartoon character. But okay, who's on my Who's on my list next?
Yeah.
Arn Anderson.
All right.
Are you on there?
Toot toot.
You're on both.
I love it.
Arn was a guy that, and I know we've repeatedly said this, that I've never seen really have a bad match. And he's a guy that I think sold wrestling a lot better than I've ever seen anybody else do it. And not even the fact of sold it. I think Arn should be on the list because of how he would attack somebody. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, everybody can say, "Oh, this guy's so great," and he'd sell his injuries and all that. But Arn was a guy that I think he should be on the list because of how he attacked. Like I said, like, I'm gonna go for the arm, I'm gonna go for the leg, I'm gonna do this. It's like, I know we're not gonna talk. I know we're not talking about like promos or whatever, but it was like, oh, a three-legged table doesn't serve anybody great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Arn is, in my opinion, one of the best workers in the history of wrestling.
He well, okay. And I'm gonna say this, and I've said it before, and I always get a little shade, but like, as great as Flair was in the Four Horsemen, Arn Anderson was the best wrestler. Let's
Definitely.
be honest.
Best spine buster ever. Nobody,
Yeah.
nobody can ever touch that spine buster. Like, I know everybody compliments Hunter on his, but Arn, when Arn hit that spine buster, even though it was something it's simplistic, like we were saying, about other guys, they took the simplistic stuff, but literally, it was something as simple as that spine buster, and Arn made it look like it was fucking demolishing you.
Yeah, well, yeah, and like Aaron said, Aaron was kind of alluding to, I would describe Arn Anderson's style as succinct style, because he's gonna, like you said, Aaron, he's gonna, okay, the story of this match, you have a left arm, but by the time I'm done, your left arm is no longer, you just don't have one anymore. Like, I'm gonna go for a body part, I'm gonna eliminate that body part. You're done, son.
And his matches, it wasn't even like necessarily like when his character would go in, he was looking to hurt the elbow, but if like a Ricky Steamboat sold the elbow, it's like, oh, now I'm gonna go ahead and concentrate on that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just think Arn knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and psychology wise was a master. And I know we're just talking about in-ring work, but I also think that he's the greatest tag team wrestler ever, in my opinion.
I can
Well,
get jiggy with it.
that translates to in-ring work. So, I mean, working as a tag team is just as important as working as opponents.
I'd say he was the cerebral assassin before Hunter.
Well, Mark, let's knock one off your list next.
I'm sure that he is probably on Aaron's list. And I had Aaron in mind when I was coming up with this list. And bell to bell, nobody done it more perfect than Mr. Perfect, Kurt
Well,
Hennig.
he's got to be on everybody's fucking list.
Yeah,
He's the greatest goddamn wrestler of all time.
To be honest, if I was ranking them 1 through 10, which I didn't, he's number one. He's the most. Yeah. He's the most naturally. The Mr. Perfect name was perfect for him because he was the perfect professional wrestler. He's the most naturally gifted.
It's fucking stupid how good that guy fucking was. Like, nobody should be that fucking good.
Right.
Nobody.
I mean, natural athlete, like flawless. He's on the level of execution. He outshines Brett.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's just, and he knew his role and he knew exactly how to play it and sold like nobody's business.
And I know, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I know what Aaron's is, and I understand why. I understand why. And I'm taking nothing away from it because I know, Aaron, your favorite Hulk Hogan match is Hulk Hogan and Harley Race.
Yeah.
My favorite Hulk Hogan match is Hulk Hogan and Mr. Perfect from, I think it's Saturday Night's Main Event. That's my favorite Hulk Hogan match. And Hogan deserves some credit for it too, but in that ring with Hennig, man, Hennig made himself look good. He made Hogan look good. And it's not even Kurt Hennig's remotely best match, but to me it's Hulk Hogan's best match. And I know why you love the Harley match because it is a great match. But yeah, and I mean Hennig and Brett from SummerSlam 91. You can run down any match with Kurt Hennig. Kurt Hennig versus fucking anybody is fantastic.
That's what I'm saying. It's stupid how fucking fantastic he was. Like,
well, one of my favorite things is him and Tornado.
Well, kind of sort of during that same time. And I know it's before that. I think it's from 89 or 90. I'm sorry. It's not the same. One of my favorite pro wrestling matches ever is on a random WWF World Tour Coliseum home video. And it's Kurt Hennig versus Terry Taylor. And it's one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen in my life. It's amazing. And it's just Mr. Perfect versus Red Rooster, whatever. But at match wise, it's fucking stellar.
Let's be honest though, in that match, Hennig was the cock.
Lawler Hennig.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Huff, he talked about Nick Bockwinkel because I posted like, "Hey, tell us who you think some of your favorite wrestlers are." He brought up Bockwinkel Hennig. It's fucking fantastic, and and I'm not knocking Bockwinkel, but it's like it's fucking Kurt. Like that dude, I just can't say enough about fucking Kurt. He is And I love Randy Okay, I love Randy Savage. I love Bret Hart. I love Ric Flair. But there is nobody better than Kurt Hennig, in my opinion. Like, he's number one on my list, and it's cool that you guys knocked him off. But that's my number one guy.
I knew that was going to be on Aaron's list too. I was like, we're talking about solid workers. Henning, you can't not have a list and mention him. And I know Aaron's going to have this on his list also. I was like, this is the one thing that we're going to be in sync.
So the next one that's on my list, and I'll let you guys take a quick guess as to who you think it is when I do this little bit of a description. Because I don't think there's ever been anybody that wasn't a Kurt Hennig, like a second generation, it's in their blood kind of guy that came upon the scene and you watch him wrestle one time and you're like duck to water.
Angelo Mosca Jr.
Good on picking my least favorite wrestler of all time,
Scott Putski.
By the way, I said not second generation. No. Kurt Angle.
Oh yeah.
Kurt Angle from the minute Kurt Angle's boot touched a pro wrestling ring, duck to fucking water.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and for any, again, it's one of those things, like for any of his, later in his career, he had his injuries and stuff, but he's up there to me with like Benoit and Hennig. It's just
even when his neck was fucking broke, he was better than anybody on the fucking roster he was working with.
Yeah.
Listen,
so
one of my favorite Kurt Angle moments.
So unbelievably good. One of my favorite matches of all time, like in my top 10, if I'm going to make a top 10 list, it's what is the pay-per-view called? I forget which one it is. It's during the Invasion storyline, and it's Angle versus Austin in Pittsburgh for the title. I think it might be Unforgiven, 2001. I don't remember. It's one of those. It's one of the ones that's in between SummerSlam and Survivor Series. That's one of my favorite pro wrestling matches of all time. But yeah, Kurt Angle was just a fucking natural. Everything he did looked real. Is it Unforgiven?
Unforgiven.
Yeah, everything he did looked real. His psychology was amazing from the jump. Just a perfect pro wrestler.
Yeah, but like one of my favorite Kurt Angle moments isn't even something he done in the fucking ring. It was when he had that fucking little cowboy hat on and Austin was playing the guitar.
You know what's the funny thing about all that stuff? That stuff that him and Austin were doing at that time actually wasn't meant to happen. It happened because of this at that time they were both injured and couldn't wrestle. But they wanted to keep them both on TV. So it was just unintentional. We got to get these guys on TV. And then it turned out to be some of the best comedy ever done in wrestling.
It was comedic genius just to have them do that shit. I popped so hard laughing, like probably bruised a few ribs laughing at that shit alone.
Yeah,
when we were saying with Randy about the facials, Kurt had that shit down pat too.
When people talk about Austin's great feuds, they talk about the feud with Bret, which is great. Obviously, Austin McMahon, Austin Rock. I don't think the Austin Angle chemistry and rivalry gets talked about enough.
No, I agree.
They were so good together, whether they were together or against each other. Fantastic shit, man.
I mean, but those two styles just melded so well because you got, Angle as the technician, and then you got Austin as the brawler. So those, if you look historically through wrestling, those type of wrestlers, they tend to meld well, and it's like syrup to milk. You can't have good chocolate milk without good syrup. Then
It's like the legendary Gorilla Monsoon always said, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object.
Yep.
And yeah.
Shout out to Gorilla for making it into our Hall of Fame.
Whoop, whoop.
But Kurt
Would you stop?
But Kurt as a worker, it's like you said, Nate, it was like Dr. Water. And it's just like he fucking got it right from the start.
He got it from the minute it started, psychology wise, when he makes his debut at Survivor Series 99. That gimmick throughout the history of wrestling, American Olympic gold medalist, all-American boy, blah, 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 had been the babyface character. He comes out there and he is immediately, you just want to slap his fucking face. It's like, you smug son of a bitch. He got what they wanted him to do, and he went out there and did it.
Yeah.
And I know, like, in ring, when we talk about in ring, it could also not just be the moves and the psychology of what you're doing, it's the what you're saying, but Kurt got that aspect of it too, of being able to hang and doing what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, a testament to that dude should be that SummerSlam fiasco. Like, when he got knocked out.
Yeah.
Like, if that would have been anybody else, that would have been a fucking train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
But he fucking knew exactly what, like, it's insane and stupid and should not have been a real thing of this guy being able to work that fucking show, being that knocked out with only being in the fucking business for, what, 6 months?
At that point, almost a year. But yeah, I mean, being on the big leagues almost a year. He had been in Memphis or whatever. But no, yeah, being on the big show. He debuted Survivor Series 99, and this is SummerSlam 2000, so it's not even a year.
Yeah.
My favorite psychological thing that he would do when he pulled down those straps. When I pop that strap, it's time to tap. I used to love when he do that.
He got that from Memphis. He got that from Jerry Lawler.
Yep.
He picked up. That's what great workers do, is they pick up the shit from other people that were great. They combine certain things and they turn it into their own thing.
Right.
That's where he picked that. Sure. That's where he picked that strap down shit up. He picked it up from Lawler in Memphis.
But he took that shit and he made it his own. And it's like, when them straps came down, you knew he was putting somebody in that fucking ankle lock, and they were friend to be, begging, either tapping, or they were gonna, be in a fight for their life for that rope.
Aaron, who you got next?
Well, the next person that I have is Eddie Guerrero.
Yes.
One of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I didn't put him on this list. He's my third favorite pro wrestler of all time if I'm ranking them, but man, Eddie.
Halloween Havoc, what is it, 96, him and Ray?
Is it 96 or 97?
I think it's either 96 or 97. But him and Ray, oh my God, that match right there is what made me fall in love with that style of, to be honest with you, that's what made me fall in love with Rey Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the guy, I know we were talking about, like, in-ring work, but one of the things that I can go with in-ring work of that is how can you work a crowd? And I've never seen a guy other than maybe Flair and Hogan that could work a crowd better than Eddie Guerrero.
I agree.
To get them invested and into it as much as him. You know what I mean?
There's only one more that I would put on that list, and that's going to be somebody that I'm going to bring up in a little bit. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, Eddie was a master at getting that crowd in the palm of his hand, whether he was a baby face or a heel. I mean, I'd say one of the 20 best, maybe even 15 to 10 best WWE championship matches ever. And it's purely based on Eddie capturing the crowd and capturing the imagination of the fans, is him and Brock when he won the title from Brock.
Hell yeah. And Brock did a great job as a heel in that leading up to it, but just the match itself, fucking Eddie owned that fucking crowd. And if anybody would want to tell me, oh, Eddie didn't do that or Eddie didn't know how to work a crowd, it's like, watch that fucking match. Watch anything that fucking guy did. He owned that. Any building that Eddie Guerrero went into, he fucking owned.
Oh yeah.
And he was the best goddamn guy on the fucking card.
He could make you laugh. He can make you laugh. He can make you resonate with him and be like, "Man, I feel for him." Or, you know, he'll make you, yeah, or make you want to slap him in the mouth. There's two favorite all time things of Eddie Guerrero. One, how he used to do the little cheap wins where he'd smack the damn chair, throw it to the opponent, and the ref and disqualify his
that's
opponent.
owning that fucking crowd, man.
I love that shit so much, and I don't know why this moment sticks out so much to me, but him and Paul White when he had him eat the burrito and Paul White got the shits. Comedic fucking genius. It's just something as simple as that. I mean, some people find fart jokes funny and stuff like that, but when he was like, I can't go out to the match because I got this run.
My favorite non-crowd work, like non-live Eddie Guerrero thing, was when him and Chavo were doing the live We Cheat We Steal shit, and they were doing the vignettes, and they talked to the old lady about her pool, and he was like, "Oh, your pool's got a hole in it. I mean, you don't want your pool to get all wet, do you?" Like, that shit was funny. It was like, your pool's gonna get a hole in it and get wet. It's like, that was funny shit. But Eddie Guerrero as a wrestler, like, there's not a lot of people that you can say were better than him.
No,
honestly. And that's not even me just being like, oh, he passed away or whatever, and being like a trying to trumpet somebody that's not here anymore type of guy. But there's not a lot of guys who are better than him.
And just the way he did that frog splash, like a lot of people credit RVD to having a good one, but to me, the execution of that frog splash, nobody done that shit like Eddie.
Perfect.
Yeah, like just from the extension and everything, like flawless frog splash.
Yep, he was definitely a guy that was born to be a professional wrestler. There's no doubt.
Indeed. Which he comes from a pedigree, right?
Oh yeah. Not a bad wrestler in the bunch, but Eddie was definitely the best.
There's two that I just realized that's on the modern product that I didn't know were multi-general wrestlers that I have a new respect for, and that's Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Angel and Humberto.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize that they were multi-generational talents.
So who do you got next, Mark?
Up next for me, since we talked about Eddie, let's talk about Ray because Ray's on my list. As far as lucha, that man is the epitome of it. He took that culture, brought it to America, wowed the people with all those high flying off the wall moves. And to be honest with you, Rey Mysterio goes down in my top 5 any day.
Oh, Rey Mysterio is he's the best Mexican wrestler of all time.
Oh yeah,
hands down.
Right.
End of story.
I know the whole when he did that no limit thing with Master P and all them, and WCW gets shit on, and he was unmasked and all that, but literally from the time that kid stepped onto the scene until now, he still does. He's still flawless in ring, and he's that underdog that you want to root for. And then I've never been like, man, I really hate Rey Mysterio.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and anything like you said with the unmasking and the no limit soldiers, anything that Ray's ever done in his career that's you could say quote unquote is a negative was not him, it was whoever was booking him.
Right.
They booked him in that situation. He still had fantastic fucking matches.
Oh yeah.
They booked him in that situation, and it is what it is. But yeah, to me, he's the greatest Mexican professional wrestler of all time. And I always say I don't watch Japanese wrestling, but I do watch a lot of Mexican wrestling. And
right.
He's the best. He's the best. And there's been some greats. But see, the thing that really makes Ray the best in that genre is that he's the guy that mixed lucha with the American style the best.
Right.
He can have a great lucha match with a lot of high spots and a lot of flips and a lot of aerial maneuvers and holy shit moments and everything, but he can also ground and pound, you know, and we talked about Ricky Morton and other people selling. This is a guy that sells well with a mask on. That's even harder to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, what a fucking talent.
Yeah. Like, probably my 3 favorite is with him. Number 1 being when he won the World Heavyweight title. Number 2 being him and Eddie at Halloween Havoc. And then I really enjoyed that feud with him and Nash.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
that David versus Goliath storyline, and to me, even though Ray come out on the other end of it, but I liked it.
Well, but the thing about that is a lot of times with the Click guys, they would work a program with somebody, and they would. Yeah, what it is. But like Kevin Nash, he'd work a program with somebody, especially when he was high up in the totem pole and had a lot of power. And the other person came out looking like dog shit because he just, his political. And yes, Ray did come out, quote unquote, on the shit end of the stick on that feud. But Kevin Nash recognized the amount of talent that he was working with there. And he still, like, even though he's fucking a human being taller than Rey Mysterio, he still sold for Rey Mysterio. He still made Rey Mysterio look good. And at the end of the day, the bigger guy should ultimately win it in the grand scheme of things. But he made Ray look like gold, and Ray made him look like gold. But yeah, they had a great chemistry together.
What is it, Aaron? We see that smirk. Are you finna go Bret Hart on us?
My fucking computer about died. But about Ray, he's My second favorite luchador ever, and the only reason I wouldn't have put him on my list of favorite like realistic in-ring workers is just because I like Lucha Libre, but it's not the most believable style of wrestling, and I'm not knocking it. Okay.
Well, no, that's why I was saying he was the best at it, because he was the best at mixing the outlandishness of lucha and the high spots, but also adding an element of ground and pound and technical wrestling to it when needed.
Yeah, there's a reason the guy's 50 years old and he's still relevant. You know what I mean? Relevant. I can speak.
The next guy on my list, I had a coin toss between two guys because I have two more here, and I wanted to include. So for this next spot, it was a coin toss between two guys because I knew that Aaron or Mark, one of you, would put the other guy on your list so we could talk about him. So I'm going to go with the other. I'm going to go with not heads, but tails. Great bell-to-bell in-ring workers of all time. There is no doubt Jerry Lawler's on that list.
Okay.
I almost put Lawler on my list. I almost put him on my list.
Jerry Lawler
is
Hulk Hogan
the most. He might be the most believable wrestler ever.
Yeah, the most realistic, because he has a very simple move set, but it always looks real. It always pops the crowd. He always captures. I mean, the psychology of Jerry Lawler is insane.
He has the best punch in wrestling history.
What other wrestler, other than maybe Bruno, can say that they legit sold out their main arena in their territory for like 20 plus years and nobody got bored with them? You know what I mean? Like Jerry Lawler isn't just a great wrestler. He was like a fabric of the society of that region of the country. He's so fucking good. So good.
And this might sound dumb, but he was always fat. So he never looked old. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
He had the cherub going on.
Like he always, I don't even want to say.
Arn Anderson had that too. Arn Anderson always looked old, so he was never old.
Yeah. Like Arn Anderson always looked like he was 50.
Yeah.
Like when he was 22. When he was 22, he looked like he was like that fucking promo that he cuts about Dusty when he's on the beach. Like he's debuting, and it's like, you look old. Like, what are you doing?
Like Lawler, other than when he had the little goatee, you know, Lawler pretty much is the same looking Lawler in the Memphis Coliseum in 1983 that he is at WrestleMania 27 against Michael Cole. He just looks the same.
The only time he's changed is now. Now he looks like Bill Watts. But for the majority of his career, Lawler always looked the same. And like I said, I think he had the best punch ever in wrestling, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, his style was just ultra realistic, and he's also one of those guys. There's not a lot. There's guys that can work babyface and work heel, but you always say they're better as one or the other. Lawler was one of those guys that is better either way. It doesn't matter. Babyface or heel, he's still just as fucking good either way. He doesn't change his style.
He was always an asshole too. And as a promo, he's always an asshole too. But I don't
No,
want to talk about promos. But as a worker,
And that's
right,
somebody.
he was always just the same guy.
And that's something that we talked about. Angle picking up the, people going through Memphis. Angle picking up the strap down to show that we're on now. He got that from Lawler. The thing about being a babyface and a heel and not changing who you are, I bet that's where Rock learned that. He learned that from watching Lawler, because the Rock's character, whether he's a babyface or a heel, is a fucking asshole. You know what I mean?
Right.
And another reason that you can say that guy was great is how many old guys or older guys in that promotion, like the WWF at that time, could you hear that the entire clique was like, that's the fucking man over there.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, Sean Waltman, and Triple H were like, yeah, Kingfish, he's the best.
My thing about him is I was thinking, about why Lawler was over as big as he was, and to be honest with you, it was, he had the whole King gimmick, but at the same time, he still looked like somebody that you see at your family reunion.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's cousin Jerry.
Looks like the guy in the crowd. Yeah.
So I think that, to me, in just, in my opinion, that's the reason why he was over, because they could see themselves in
Mhm.
that type of predicament.
And I know it's not in-ring work, and I know we're talking about in-ring work, but while we're talking about him, that's the other thing that really, like, he captured in Memphis too, was he captured in Memphis in a territory style way. And maybe this is something somebody else learned from Jerry Lawler. I don't know, because this is another guy that went through Memphis. But Lawler also captured the essence of telling a story along with his interviewer, Lance Russell. Hulk Hogan and Gene Okerlund did that too. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
he knew that, it's like every week on Memphis TV, there's going to be some segment with Lance Russell and Jerry Lawler. Lance and Jerry. And there's that connection, And I don't know. It's just, they don't fucking make them like they used to. Anyway. Aaron?
Well, I only have two more on my list. So I will go with not my number one, but the last guy on my list is Terry Funk.
All right, so he was my coin flip with Lawler, because I knew you or Mark, one of you would bring him up.
Old Funker.
One of the 5 best to ever do it.
Yeah, and he knew exactly how to do it, and knew exactly how to do it through generations. Like, I know we talk about, how you said, Nate, like, whatever age you are, that's how you understand wrestling. You know what I mean? But Funk knew how to, okay, in the 70s, this is how we do it. Now we moved in the 80s. Now this is how I'm going to do it. Okay, now we're in the 90s. Like 70s, okay, we're going to do wrestling. 80s, we're going to do Showtime wrestling or whatever you want to call it. Then we get into the 90s. Now we're going to do hardcore wrestling. And now, even into the 2000s, we're going to do like Attitude Era wrestling. Terry, to me, is the greatest chameleon in the history of professional wrestling.
I see it.
Every style.
Nobody did it better than him in that aspect of it.
Every style, every region, every country, every era, everything. Like I've said before on the shows, and we get into the debates and we get deep into it. But I think you guys can attest to the fact that even though he is in my top 10, but even though he's not my favorite wrestler of all time, I've said on record numerous times he might be the best to ever do it. Just overall, looking at his entire career, holy shit. And his psychology, and the way that he moved his body and the way that he'd sell a punch or the way that he'd sell this or that or just insane. And he was also a guy with that fucking gift that Eddie had to connect with that crowd.
You say it all the time. You don't watch a lot of Japanese wrestling, but if you won't go back and watch,
I don't watch Japanese wrestling, but I watch Terry Funk wrestling in Japan. Don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted.
That and my thing with Terry was after watching that Cody Rhodes documentary, you understand that Terry took this fucking business very fucking seriously.
Mm-hmm.
He said because in the airport, him and Dusty was in the airport, and he's like, "Here comes this guy hollering obscenities at my dad and calling him an egg sucking dog." It's like Terry was working when Terry wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for him to keep kayfabe like that, you understand that Terry definitely took the business very seriously.
Yes.
But just bell to bell, man, there's not a lot of guys that you can put over him.
Nope.
No, and to be honest with you, my favorite pile driver ever.
I mean,
and
you brought up Lawler. That's the only good NBA arena match that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
All the other ones are trash. That's the only good one. Oh my fucking eye, my eye. And then he's like fucking. What the next week he's fucking dumping motor oil over his head, shit.
And then he knew he knew when he went to WCW in the fucking year 2000, and they threw him into the hardcore wrestling mix. He knew at my age, with my mileage, when I come out here and wrestle in these hardcore matches, I need to have on baggy pants, suspenders, and a t-shirt. I need to look like garbage. I need to look like I need to look like a homeless person when I come out here to wrestle these matches.
And that's the other thing too. Like even in '98, people shit canned that chainsaw Charlie gimmick. That was his fucking idea.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to be Chainsaw Charlie. It's like that dude understood the business, I think, better than anybody else. And him in '94 WCW was really fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
And like when they wanted him to fucking be a fucking knight and Vince wanted to have his fucking mask ripped off, that's when he was like, "Oh, I gotta go take care of my horse."
My horse is sick. The
So
funniest thing about that is that in 1986, when he left, when they had him and Dory as him and Hoss and all that shit, and they brought Jimmy Jack in, he also told Vince he had a sick horse. So he had a sick horse in 86, and then he had a sick horse in 94. So, or 93.
And Vince laughed at it. I ain't gonna be mad. It's fucking Terry Funk. But like I said, I don't think you can get much better than Terry.
No, you ain't definitely gonna hear no qualms from me on him.
Except for maybe the last guy on my list, but I don't know if you guys have anybody else.
like we talked about before. Literally, he's part of my favorite tag team match of all time, the dumpster match with him and Cactus versus New Age Outlaws at Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know why that match stuck out to me the way it did, but
Well,
it was
and they were getting the push before that, but the feud with Cactus and Funk made the Outlaws. You know, end of story.
yeah. They gave
Mark,
they gave him grub the right way.
Who you got next, Mark? How many you got left?
5.
What?
Yeah.
5. I don't have time for 5.
Let's go with. I'm gonna go with somebody from the modern era. That's right now. That's great in ring. AJ Styles. Been around for a while. Been doing it solid. He gets it.
Yeah, he's the modern equivalent of a Brett or a Shawn. You know, he just goes out there and if he's on the card that night when you go to see the show, if not the best match, he's probably going to have one of the best matches. You know, he just gets it. He just gets it.
And to be honest with you, when we went to that last house show down there in Tallahassee, when his music hit, and mind you, Riddle was on the card, Rollins was on the card, you know, a bunch of good talent. Bianca Belair was there, Carmella. When AJ Styles' music hit, everybody in that fucking arena stood the fuck up and was singing that shit, bro.
But yeah, he's had a solid career, and in the ring, he's another guy. I mean, I can't say I've ever seen a bad AJ Styles match. I just can't.
Even in that crap hole of TNA.
Yeah, he was the best thing about that company.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I was just gonna say that if you wanted to compare anybody to Kurt, and he'd be the guy that I compare it to, because like I said, I never saw him have a bad match, but just right out the gate, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was a kid. He was a fucking short-haired kid and having those great fucking matches, and he was doing it with dudes that he shouldn't have been having great matches with. You know what I mean? AJ, it's stupid how fucking talented he is. And he's now what? How old is he now?
Oh, he's not 50 yet.
Nah.
He's probably what, like 45?
Yeah, 45, 40, between 45 and 47, probably.
Let me do my mic tonight. We'll find out.
So what we're gonna do, because I do have to work in the morning. Mark with his fucking, I got 5 left.
46.
I have at 46. All right, so yeah, I have one more.
I only have one more.
So unless me and Aaron's one more,
because I'm an adult and I followed the rules. I only made 10.
I had 10.
Well, I'm only giving you 1 or 2 more, Mark, for this episode. I'm only giving you 1 or 2 more.
I'm only doing one
fast track.
So I got to work in the morning too.
But anyway, the next guy on my list, Ted DiBiase.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was almost on my list.
Ted DiBiase, and I know we're talking in ring, so I'm not even going to go into his personality and his ability to adapt to whatever they threw at him. But Ted DiBiase was a guy that, like, especially in the 80s and early 90s WWF, when they had, and Vince Vince didn't really care about work rate, but when he was like, I have this champion that's a monster and he's charismatic and he has a great look and he gets a big pop, but 2 minutes in, the fucking the old expression, once the bell rings. Ted DiBiase was one of those guys that Vince McMahon was like, you're going to work with the Ultimate Warrior over and over and over and over again because you're such a great wrestler that when he's in the ring with you, it's going to look like he's a great wrestler too.
And Nate, do you want to say why I think Ted was great? Kind of like what you were saying with Vince, is Vince gave him the greatest gimmick of all fucking time. Greatest goddamn gimmick ever. But gave him the gimmick, but did not make him change once the bell rung.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he was the $1 million man. He had the flashy suit and the dollar sign and ha 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 or whatever. But once he ripped the pants off, it was just black fucking short pants and boots. You know what I mean? Like he didn't make him be stupid in the ring or anything like that. Like once the bell rang, he was just a fucking worker. You know what I mean? So that's where I think Vince respected Ted DiBiase enough to be like, I'm gonna know that you're gonna do this gimmick. It's the greatest gimmick of all time, better than anybody else. But I'm also not gonna make you look like a buffoon in the fucking ring because you're.
And I also don't know
absolutely
why.
One of the best.
I don't know why it's even a debate. It shouldn't ever be a debate. Because that's one thing. People debate it sometimes. They talk about different people like Jake Roberts or I don't know who else, whatever. It doesn't matter. Ted DiBiase is the greatest pro wrestler to never be a world champion. End of story. But, and that's another thing Vince did. Vince was like, you're such a good wrestler. We're going to make it where you don't even need to be the champion.
Yeah,
Because you're going to
you
be
buy your own belt.
You're going to be your own champion. You're going to create your own. Because that's what Vince would have done. Because the $1 Million Man gimmick was Vince McMahon in a gimmick. It was, you know what I'd do? I'd just make my own championship. I'd defend it and everything.
My favorite thing is when he kicked the kids out of the pool. I know everybody likes when he kicked the fucking basketball out of the black kid's hand. I love when he buys the pool. It's my favorite thing.
The fucking guy that runs the pool's like, everybody out, everybody out.
Yeah, get the fuck out. I love that.
I like his promos on Tito Santana. I don't know why I like this so much. It's funny to me.
All right, Aaron. Next one.
I got one more. As opposed to Mark's 8. The last guy on my list is Dynamite Kid. And it's kind of like what we were saying about like Chris and Eddie or whatever. But there has never been a wrestler that I've ever seen in my life that just was just balls to the wall, throw himself into something like Dynamite.
That guy, like you were saying with Arn, the way he attacked, Dynamite had, that element to him too.
And Dynamite
left his health in the fucking ring. And I'm not saying it's the way to go. Like it's not a good thing to do that, but he left his well-being in the ring, in my opinion.
And this would be another great top 5 or top 10 or whatever. to do sometime. So keep this in the back of your minds for one time because I'm not thinking about it now, or I'm thinking about it now, but I'm not going to think about it later. Dynamite was literally a pro wrestling game changer. He did something like there's lots of great wrestlers. There's lots of great wrestlers. There's lots of great sports entertainers. There's lots of people in the business. There's lots of great talkers. There are very few people that go out in the ring and literally show you something you've never seen before. You know what I mean? Like, he was a game changer. The match between him and Tiger Mask is one of the watershed game-changing moments in pro wrestling history. End of story. If anybody tells you different, they're full of shit. It just was. Whether good or bad, whether reckless or not, whether you can say what you want to say, but it changed things. And that's what he did. He changed things. And there's something to be said for that.
And you're right, Nate. And like I said, like I've never seen a professional wrestler that was just like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, like, I don't care what happens to me. All I'm going to do is make sure what I fucking do looks the best that it looks. You know what I mean?
He's a kamikaze.
Yeah. Like, that dude sacrificed his body for professional wrestling. And I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but it was he might be the greatest wrestler I've ever seen in my life.
All right. So, Mr. Brew, here's your choices. Choose your adventure. Remember the Choose Your Adventure books? Choose your adventure. Because I really do have to work in the morning. I'm not trying to blow you off in any way, shape, or form. I promise. You know. If I had the time, we'd go on for 3 hours. So, do you want to take one more and throw it out there and have a detailed destruction of it? Or do you just want to...
I think Nate had a stroke.
Now I'm talking like this. By God. Austin. Sorry, Jim Ross didn't have a stroke. He had Bell's palsy. I'm going to go in the room of shame. Anyway, do you want to give us one more and we talk about that? Or do you want to give us what you got left and we can kind of go quickly through? Because I don't want to shit on your list. I don't want to be like, yeah, fuck off.
All right, so my final four.
Okay.
The Rock, Seth Rollins, Shawn Michaels, and Ric Flair.
All right. I'll go on my quick thoughts here. Unless you want to go first, because you brought them up.
No, I want to hear your opinions.
Okay, Rock, I disagree. I think if we were going charismatic, absolutely. I think that going back and to me watching his in-ring work, he was a few trick pony. My personal opinion. And that's what this is. These lists are personal opinions. You dig it? That's cool. You said Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins in this modern day of professional wrestling, I say number one, Randy Orton. Number 2, AJ Styles. Number 3, Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins really is. I mean, his newest gimmick, like the thing, really annoys me. But once the bell rings, nobody can deny he's one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. Absolutely. Right. And number 4 is Gunther. He's coming up fast, though. Within 5 years, that guy's going to be the best wrestler on the planet. But I definitely give Seth a big nod. for the modern product. Yeah, he's one of the guys that when I see, he's one of the guys I am excited to watch WWE pay-per-views to watch him. Because in a WWE pay-per-view, I'm not going to have to listen to him do that annoying fucking voice. I'm just going to get to watch him do what he fucking does, and that's wrestle really, really well.
The problem is they try, even with them trying to make him a heel, he's still fucking over.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Nobody's buying that bullshit. Just hit Seth. We like him.
Yes. HBK, without a doubt. I would say he's right behind Ricky Morton for me on the salesman list. Because even when he was an asshole, he still sold well.
So who are the people? Sorry.
The Rock, Seth Rollins, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair.
Ric Flair, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, but Ric Flair had the same match a lot. Seth Rollins, it's kind of like what Nate said. He's annoying as a heel, or his promos or whatever, but in the ring he's great. Rock, I wouldn't put Rock in a list of in-ring great workers, but if you put him as an all-around wrestler, fantastic. And Shawn, the only reason that I wouldn't say that Shawn Michaels was the only reason I'd say Shawn Michaels isn't a great in-ring worker is because he's selfish and kind of, he's not anymore, but back in the day, like in his prime, he was an asshole.
See, that's where I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's where I get.
But you did.
I did. But that's where I get sideways with Shawn, because I don't know. Do you weigh that? Do you weigh that first? Okay, do you weigh like 95 to 98 against what he did from 2002 to 2010?
Yes.
Because when his second run, he made stars, he made moments. He had better matches in his twilight than he did in his 20s.
I'm a Shawn Michaels fan, okay? And I'm even a Shawn Michaels fan when he was an asshole. But I'm going to base it off of when he was supposed to be the ring general, locker room leader, guy in charge. He wasn't the best guy. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Because Nate, even when he got into that later stage, there were still a couple guys that he didn't like, and he's like, "I'm gonna fuck with him."
Yeah,
he fucked with Hogan.
No, Hogan deserved it though.
Why no? But I'm just saying, like that's the only reason that I wouldn't. It's one of the only reasons I wouldn't put Shawn on my list of great in-ring performers, because he was just like, I'm gonna fuck with these guys.
Now, Mark, you brought up those four guys, and I made you express lane that shit. So I'll let you be the main event here, and you can tell us, go down each one of them, and let us know why you put them on your list.
All right, The Rock. You said charismatic. Yes. The reason why I put The Rock on there is because Yeah, he had the two moves of doom, or however you want to put it, the people's elbow and the rock bottom. But he also did other things well, like selling. Like nobody sold a damn stunner like fucking like the Rock. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like between him
and I
him,
was I'll give you that right there, and I'm not trying to cut you off, but as far as working goes, the best and okay, so Rock Austin matches were great because they were spectacles.
right.
But if you want to see The Rock, like if you want to watch The Rock do what he can do in the ring, bell to bell as a wrestler, go watch those matches. What year was it? Was it 2000 or 2001? The matches when he had that program with Benoit. Killed it. That's the best
Fully Loaded
wrestling.
in
That's the best
2000.
wrestling I ever saw Rock do.
And then Seth Rollins, literally, he has my favorite RKO moment with Randy Orton.
Oh,
And
super.
that's it. Everybody talks about the Evan Bourne one, but to me, the Seth Rollins Randy Orton RKO, the best. Solid in ring worker. Other than the fact that he hurt Sting, but we're not going to go there. Which I mean, I don't consider that his fault, anyways. It's just a coincidence, and he
He's
felt
like,
bad
the
about
dude's old.
it. Like he's lucky he wasn't dropped on his fucking head before now. Shawn Michaels, just the kip up, the sweet chin music. Like every time he stomped that foot, you can't tell me you weren't sitting there on the edge of your seat going stomping with him. You
I
know
know
what I'm
I
saying? Like
was.
he had that ability to captivate the crowd, and despite if he was an asshole or not and didn't want to do business when it was time to do business, there's a reason why he was chosen to be the one to retire Ric Flair.
But the thing is, he did do business. Like
Right.
Vince McMahon said it. Vince McMahon said he would argue with me and all day long about what I wanted him to do. And then he would go through that curtain and do exactly what I wanted him to do.
He just let you know he wasn't fucking happy about it.
Yeah.
And Ric Flair, the 60-minute man, the Nature Boy, the one that captivates you and makes you and if you were a fan of that era of wrestling, you can't talk about greatest in ring guys without talking about Flair. Sold like nobody's business. To me, the greatest heel of all
And the only thing I want to add is like I know I said Flair had the same match all the time, but it was the best goddamn match every time. Like I'm
time. Right.
not discounting him. I'm not discounting Ric Flair at all. And I don't want to discount Shawn either. And
But that's why these
that's
lists
the
are
only
your personal favorites.
Right.
You know, that's why I told Mark earlier today when we were chatting. That's why wrestling is the greatest. Being a wrestling fan is the greatest way to be a fan of anything in the world because it's the most subjective art form on the planet.
Right.
You know,
And not
like
everybody's gonna have the same.
you get 7 people together and say who's your favorite wrestler of all time, and unless they're just bullshitting and coming up with a name because they think that's the name, you're going to get 7 different names.
Yeah.
Unless somebody says Bruce Beefcake, you don't have to stab them.
It's the Zodiac, damn it.
Mama Beefcake would disagree.
He doesn't have
the
a mama.
Mama Beefcake's favorite wrestler, Hulk Hogan.
my response to what Aaron said about him having the same match over and over. You got to think though, that's the day and age that he came up in. You know, they
And
were
you-
wrestling every day of the week, twice on Sunday. So I mean, you had to get into a kind of a rhythm back then. That's just the style of working that he was familiar with.
I don't think Brutus Beefcake has a mama.
Brutus Beefcake was
He was
hatched.
hatched. Let me
I
find
think
out.
he
The
was
guy
just-
will-
Gene Okerlund was like, "What is in that egg? What is in that egg?" And out came Brutus.
I think
Beefcake.
he was found.
he was processed meat.
Hot dog Brutus Beefcake. Brutus hot dog beef.
Brutus Beefcake is Carl Budding's meat. He's just-
But yeah, to me, I really enjoyed Flair. Flair was the bad guy that everybody loved to hate, but everybody wanted to be like him too. He went from a simpleton, and probably I guarantee he went to a lot of debt just to create that persona,
Mm-hmm.
and he's living his dream. I mean, they clown him right now with the wooing shit on Cornette. But I mean, at the same time, the man's still making money in this day and age.
Wings. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this edition of the show. Mark, I'm sorry I had to express lane your last four, but I think we still got some good conversation about all of them.
Oh yeah.
Stay tuned, everybody. The Hall of Fame episodes are coming up, and Mark, what you don't know is before you joined the show this evening, Aaron and I talked about after the Hall of Fame episodes, it's time to do another one of our deep dives and go 500 through number one on a PWI 500.
Oh, what year?
Aaron picked 1994.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's gonna be rough.
And I will close out with, for everybody, since Brutus Beefcake is processed meat, my baloney has a first name. It's Brutus. My baloney has a second name. It's Beefcake.
Zodiac.
The man with no name. The hot dog with no name.
And don't forget, snap into a Slim Jim. Oh yeah.
Dig it. Snap into a beefcake. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll see everybody next week. Happy New Year. And we'll see you next time around, everybody, on the We Can't Wrestle podcast.